Hello everyone and welcome to game 2 in a series between Violet versus the Muslim here on Dual Site. The Muslim spawning as the blue Terran player over here at the 3 o'clock position. Meanwhile, Violet spawning as the red Zerg. Zerg versus Terran here on Dual Site. Normally a Zerg favored map, and we'll see whether or not that does hold true. I think the numbers are fairly close, but a slight advantage to Terran just because of the wide open positions and the ability and ease for Zerglings to be able to flank. Now the third base is a little bit far, and Hellions could also spell some problems as well, especially if they do get that blue flame tech. Normally, a lot of Terran players recently haven't been getting blue flame just because they are unable to two-shot any more workers. So with that, we'll see whether or not the Muslim opens up with a standard reactor Hellion opening expansion, or if he will change things up this time around. Violet currently just getting up more overlords. Both players really haven't tipped their hand as to what they're doing in the long term just quite yet. Drone should be able to make it up this ramp off over here in just a moment, and then pretty much see everything it needs to see. He can see that the Muslim is going for a barracks here. I still don't see a refinery as of yet. You can see that he is training up another SCV. A drone now comes off, gets some damage onto that SCV there as the drone still wanders around here. Now the drone just wandering through this mineral line sees that there's no gas, and we'll see what the Muslim tries to do. It looks like the Muslim built another supply depot here, is going to be going for that barracks, and now the drone just simply passing off in the middle of the mineral line. We'll see if enough damage will be had, and whether or not that drone will try to grow up to be an extractor and do a bit of extractor blocking. Meanwhile, back in the base of Violet, natural expansion now being established, as well as no real tech buildings being built yet by Violet. Now we can see that a later refinery has gone down. So a later refinery, we are going to be going into the orbital command. The supply depot already being built here as an extractor now being added. Violet may be forced to just build and constantly cancel, as we saw this build coming in from the Muslim in the previous game. He's going to be able to train up about 3-4 Marines and then go for... Oh, the drone. Is he going to be able to make it out? No, unable to make it out. Nicely done by the Muslim. Getting there with an SCV, blocking the pathing and preventing the constant rebuilding and that annoyance. Hatchery about to be completed. We can see that we are going into an extractor pool, or actually I believe it was a pool that followed by the extractor. It's going to be a little bit of time before we have enough gas for metabolic boost. 17 drones versus 17 SCVs. That will quickly change, as now the Muslim is going into a command center, but we are going into double queens for Violet, meaning a much heavier drone production. SCV now attempting to make its way down the ramp, taking a look around at what's going on. The SCV still looking at the Zerglings and pretty much goes, okay, I cannot stick around for far too long. I need to get out of here. And it looks like that drone or the SCV will be able to return back, as the Zerglings now regrouping together once more. A reactor is being built, and we'll see whether or not the Muslim actually does a reactor swap. He didn't do it in game 1, and we'll see if he does do it in game 2. Currently, only one Marine guarding this front door location here, and it looks like the Muslim will be going into a swap on that barracks, as the timing on this may be really bad news if he's not careful. The Zergling about just going to switch, and oh, is it going to make it in time? Yes, it does make it just in time. That would have been horrible timing. And now the Muslim does have enough to get a lot of Hellions and now chase after all of those Zerglings. So all those early Zerglings are going to be for naught. Metabolic boost still needs a little bit more time. Double Hellions, as we are now going to go perhaps into triple racks. Also, Marine making sure that there are no overlords trying to make their way inside this space. If an overlord does sneak in, it would be able to scout out all of this here. A tech lab, another factory being built. So the Muslim going very heavy into mech play. Now, with the swap here, he could either decide to go into siege tanks or try to go for blue flame. The blue flame will be able to two-shot units, as we now see a macro hatch coming in from Violet, a very common strategy now, and I need to set this away. Alright, So getting into the game here, we can see that we are going to siege tanks with siege tech, no blue flame. It is going to be Hellions with siege tanks, a very natural response after game one. Game one, those roaches were able to just push their way in a little bit too easily, and there was nothing to really counter them. Right now we have a fair number of Hellions. The Hellions are going to be able to torch through Zerglings very easily, as the units now are making their way out. 6 Hellions apparently trying to take each of the Zelnaga towers, making sure that no units are going to be running up the ramps here, as the Hellions will end up regrouping, but they are currently split, and this may be bad, as 1 Hellion, 2 Hellion, oh, the Muslim losing control of his Hellions. They need to regroup together, and we'll see how that all works out. Siege tech about to be completed. The first siege tank is already out up on the high ground, as the Hellions now try to control creep. It is going to be 2 bases. The 2 bases, Violet does spot all of these SCVs. The SCVs do not spot the Overlord, so I believe the SCV actually has a little bit less of a sight range, as Hellions still make their way out across the field. It looks as though the Hellions are not going to find a 3rd base yet, as Violet has not tried to expand to it. And yeah, with this macro hatch, no real heavy need, but Zergling's not going to run inside the base here. That is 9 Zerglings. Hellions getting in a lot of easy damage there. SCVs coming off the mineral line. I believe the siege tanks will finish that all off. And how many workers were lost? 2 workers lost, 46 compared to 40, but with double mules, the Muslim still has a nice advantage. Now, a lot of Terran players at this time would build a 3rd command center and just use it to train up more and more SCVs to get a stronger economy. We'll see if that's going to work out here. The front door, the scanner sweep doesn't reveal anything, as the Zerglings are going to try to swarm in, and this is going to be really bad here. The Hellions all getting caught, and the Muslim losing all these Hellions, not being very careful at all, and the Zerglings are going to be able to take down more and more of those units. The losses now just slightly growing for the Muslim, as we now see 3 siege tanks, or 4 siege tanks, rolling out. There's another command center being built off over here. We are going into heavy mech play again, and we now see an armory being added. So level 1 weapons upgrade most likely coming in on those siege tanks, and by default, those Hellions as well. But we are going into the Infernal Pre-Igniter. That means that the Hellions will be much stronger against Zerglings, able to 2-shot them. And also, without armor upgrades, without level 2 armor upgrades, the Hellions will be able to 2-shot drones if the level 1 weapons upgrades being added. But no, we see armor upgrades instead. So it is going to be armor upgrades to try and minimize the amount of damage that those Zerglings are doing. You can see an Overseer simply flying by. A Changeling has been dropped right next to these siege tanks. The siege tanks apparently didn't catch sight of it at all as the one Changeling. And now you see Hellions coming over here to torch, now trying to take down more and more of these Lings. Oh, a nice round of attack there, taking down a lot of Lings. And now the Lings have to be very careful, as Violet cannot afford to lose this many Lings this early on. He's going to be forced to replace them, as we are now going into Thors as well. Thor is about to be completed. You can see that there is currently no armor on this hatchery, so a lot more damage being dealt. The Muslim now backing away once more. The hatchery already down to 650 hit points about, and it is still falling quickly. It looks like those Hellions will be backing off though, and perhaps they are just waiting to set up for a follow-up attack, knowing that they will be able to attack in just a moment. Now, armor upgrades, level 1 about to be completed. We'll see what is going to happen with all of those Mutalisks. The Mutalisks now making their way off to the mineral line. I don't see any missile turrets though, so with no missile turrets, it's just going to be pure Thors, as the Mutalisks are now looking to come in. There is 1 Marine trying to fight off against that group of units there. Perhaps the Mutalisks saw the Thors, decided not to engage, as the Hellions now coming back in, and there's a really tight pack of drones. Blue Flame Hellion has been completed, as now the Zerglings are going to get torched very quickly here. Has to be very careful. The Zerglings getting a decent surround onto those Hellions. It looks like the Hellions will be able to take a couple more Zerglings out before the exchange is over, and a couple burrow drones as well. Mutalisks now looking to put pressure in on the far side here. Hellions now trying to make their way over. Thors a little bit too slow. Level 1 armor upgrades have been completed, and now in come the attack, and the Mutalisks not magic boxing at all, taking a lot of damage and now being forced to pull away. 5 Thors, 4 siege tanks, 8 Hellions. now making their way out. Apparently the Muslims going 3-0. I could have sworn I'm casting these games in order, as we now see Banelings, Mutalisks, and Zerglings now still making their rounds. It looks like the Zerglings will be able to get inside this base again very easily. The SCVs are all just falling now, as it looks like a lot of SCVs are now pulling back, and it looks like the Muslim pulling away with many SCVs. These SCVs are on auto repair. Oh, burrowed Banelings and preventing, or was trying to prevent, a lot of those SCVs being transferred over. It's not going to work, as it looks as though missile turrets will be built in just a second, and the Mutalisks are not going to be able to do all too much. No, it looks like they will be going after some of those units there. One Marines now trying to finally make themselves useful and perhaps shoot down some of those Mutalisks. The Mutalisks able to back off, but now in come a swarm of Roaches on the front door. The Roaches, the siege tank not in siege mode, as the Roaches trying to focus down a Thor. The Thor does go down, but not after a couple Roaches get lost as well. The Thor is, however, a much more expensive unit, a total of 500 resources. I don't believe 5 Roaches were lost in that engagement. Level 2 armor upgrades being added on the Thor. Let's see how these Thors are going to do, as they're going to push forward still. Now, Thors have a lot of hit points, 400 hit points with now a base 2 armor, soon to be base 3. And with 3 armor and SCVs constantly repairing, these Thors will be very difficult to destroy. Roaches could try to focus fire them down, but the Roaches have to be careful, as well as there are siege tanks who will do an attack very quickly and cause a lot of splash damage in siege mode. Roach is now simply going to walk inside the space. A Thor does come in, but you can see how quickly that one Thor does get destroyed. Roach is just simply inside the space. Violet up to 194 food now, as the Roaches are just going to just walk inside the space freely. Siege tank now attempting to attack down. Roaches turning back around, will be able to take down some SCVs as well, as siege tank after siege tank. The Muslim is in trouble. He's at 163 over 185 compared to Violet's 200, and these Roaches are simply just sacrificial Roaches now. He's going after the supply depots, trying to make his opponent's supply blocked. Roaches are now burrowed, so split location burrowed. Roaches will all fall. All of these Roaches going down here, and another scanner sweep being used along the top side as well. More Roaches going to get destroyed, and the harvester count showing 69 to 81. Now the Roach is going to be trying to push in onto the planetary fortress. The planetary fortress is down to a third life, or lost 500 hit points already. It needs to be repaired. Not going to get it in time. The Muslim needed to repair that planetary fortress much earlier. It was already down to 1,000 hit points, and therefore the Muslim lost in just a couple rounds of attack with the sheer number of Roaches from Violet. Roaches now trying to make their way up the ramp, will be able to do so pretty much unopposed once more, as the Roaches are now chasing after SCVs, dealing, walking, and attacking, as Violet sitting on over 2,000 resources and now going into tier 3. Roaches destroying the missile turrets here, and now the Muslim is in trouble. We'll see how he's going to try to counter this, as he does have a very large army. He does have 2-0 upgrades, soon to be 1-2 on these units, as the SCVs are now coming off the mineral line in order to attack these Roaches. Not quite sure why, as the SCVs perhaps to be engaging over here. Infestors walking straight into this group. Siege tanks now battling it out. We saw some Neural Parasite coming in, but not strong enough, as there are still 12 SCVs constantly repairing. 8 Thors now simply moving out. We have 6 siege tanks as well, and this is just going to be a very difficult group of units to try to stop and attack. 35 versus 73 drones. SCVs are repairing each other. Drones are now attempting to run away, and they will be able to do exactly that, as the bases are going to fall. Orbital command now lifted off. More Roaches being added to this group, but the Roaches are falling very quickly as they're trying to scamper away. SCVs need to stay or stay attached to this group here, as more Roaches still being added, and these bases are going to fall relatively quickly. We have burrowed infestors though, and those burrowed infestors could deal a lot of damage. Orbital commands are lifting off. Bases are down off over here as well. The Muslim with a much smaller army and no detection to find out where all of these infestors are. Those infestors going to cause a lot of problems, as the SCV now, what's going to happen here? The Muslim what is the Muslim doing with this Thor? The Thor is just sitting there taking damage and not much of anything else. A one fungal growth could have dealt a lot of damage, and there you go. There is a neural parasite. There's a fungal growth, and nicely done. This Thor taking a lot of damage, and there is the Muslim. Just so sad. Are we going to get another neural parasite? No, Roach is just going to come back in over here as we now see Thor is taking down the Hive. The Spire needs to get taken down as well, as the orbital command is going to be landing off over here, and another orbital command landing off over here. Base race, who has the stronger army right now? Violet with a much larger army. Drones, and all the tech has been completely destroyed. No Spire. No, we are rebuilding the Spire now, and we are going into tier 2 supply depots being added by the Muslim. So the Muslim wants to be able to build supply depots so that he can just start training SCVs back at home. Supply depot is off over here. We'll see what's going to happen as the units, the Roaches, are now just going across the field. These orbital commands should be lifting off in just a moment. Perhaps a couple of Roaches off over here could take down some more supply depots, making sure that he is supply blocked. The Muslim at 72 over 78. Not too many SCVs left. The SCVs should perhaps be gathering together, as there is a neural parasite, but there comes a couple rounds of siege tanks as well. All of those Roaches being forced to back off here. The Roaches falling very quickly to the siege tanks, and now with Thors with a superior range, able to deal a lot of damage, or equal range, able to deal a lot of damage to these units. The one Queen getting taken out very quickly. The Thors are low on hit points. One Thor down to 25 hit points now. It needs to be repaired. The SCV is still hiding off over here, not repairing, not joining in on the fight. And what is gonna happen? Off over here, you can see the Roaches going after the factories. And where are all of these Roaches going? We can see now a new Spine Crawler trying to go after a low hit point Thor, unable to do so. SCVs now joining in to perhaps repair these low hit point Thors, and we can still see more damage being dealt. SCVs really need to repair. They are not on auto repair for some reason, and now making their way off into this location here. Bottom right hand side of the map, Thors are all grouped together. The Roaches do not have burrow move, so they are not able to keep track of where all of these units are at any given time. The Spire will now get destroyed, in addition to the Hatchery. So the Hatchery going to fall for Violet, and what's going to happen here, the Siege Tank's going to cause a lot of splash damage, as we now see, where are those SCVs? One Hellion hiding off over here. Orbital commands now making their way down. The factories need to lift off again, and this base will fall. SCVs still not repairing. It looks like a couple low hit point Thors were destroyed by those Broodlings, as we now see orbital commands coming in. Violet going to lose one burrowed Roach there. The factories are going to be re-established. Harvester count sitting on 25 versus 2. 52 food versus 161. But the problem is the sheer amount of splash damage. Roaches need to be re-added here. The Roaches are upgraded 2-1, but the Siege Tanks will be able to block much of it. Perhaps more mules can be called into play. Siege Tanks, the factory needs to be repaired. You cannot afford to lose a factory now. It even acts as a wall to prevent any sort of flanking on those Siege Tanks. One Overseer quickly coming in, and oh, a contaminate onto the orbital command to make sure that no more SCVs can be trained off over here. A new hatchery being built. Barracks now flying around. This supply depot still operational. Not quite sure how the other one was destroyed without that one falling as well. SCV finally making its way over to repair. It looks like the factory will be saved just in time. More SCVs need to just constantly repair this location here. We are at 58 over 54 food. Violet almost nearing 200. Violet with a much stronger army, but he wants to make sure that he doesn't give this game away. Burrowed Roaches would just cause so many problems right now, but I don't think that we even have no tunneling claws being researched. If it was researched, it may actually work out well. Siege Tanks now apparently all on the ready, all on the move once more. Thors are moving out again, and we'll see what's going to happen with these 6 siege tanks. And here comes the battle. Siege tanks going to try to siege. Are they going to finish this up in time? It looks like the Roaches are simply going to be too many, and there is the GG. Well played. The Muslim losing game 2 in this series.